Sir Richard Branson seemingly has done it all. At the age of 23, he started Virgin Records and later signed the Rolling Stones. His name is attached to 400 companies, including Virgin Galactic, a leader in space tourism, and Carbon War Room, a pioneer in clean energy for big transportation. Branson and a partner also making the first hot air balloon trip across the Atlantic. The entire trip captured on film, and it's a fascinating conversation starter. This is the first time anyone's going to see really what that trip was like.
I hope we get some cloud cover over it, otherwise we're going to be in trouble again.
Tell me, why did you decide to make a film and put it out now?
Well, my son actually has a film company, and I suddenly thought, you know, I did rather a lot of filming on our attempts to try to cross the Atlantic and the Pacific in balloons, and maybe Sam would like to have a go at it. And the film's called Don't Look Down, and you'll see why it's called Don't Look Down when you see the film. I think it has people on the edge of the seats. It definitely had me on the edge of the seats for many, many hours during those crossings, and somehow we survived.
Well, yeah, somehow, because it wasn't completely clear that you were going to at some points. There's one that is out there as a clip of this film, where you and it's Per Lindström, who is your partner here, are talking about the balloon rising, and there's a limit to how far you're going to go and survive.
It was the first thing on the Atlantic crossing that went really dramatically wrong, and it was about 11:30 in the morning, and the sun was heating up the fabric of the balloon, and it's just started going up and up and up. And Per, who was the more experienced balloonist, I could see he was completely white. And if he's white, I'm going to go white myself.
Climbing or steady? Sorry, is it steady or climbing?
And we knew that, you know, once it got up to about 43,000 feet, the capsule would implode, and that would be the end of us. And Per was desperately trying to open the vent at the top of the balloon.
To release some of that pressure and allow you to
To release some of that hot air, yeah. And we were fortunate that we got through that one, only to go on to other equally hairy moments.
All right, so looking back at it now, is it something that you would do today's Richard Branson would get in that balloon, or was that something that only that...
The young Richard Branson.
the younger men would do?
It's a good question. I mean, you know, was I being selfish, you know, doing these big adventures? I mean, like 5 people had died crossing the Atlantic before we took off, and nobody had successfully got across. So, you know, the odds were not wonderful. Obviously, we felt that, you know, by flying in the jet stream, where you get these incredible strong winds, that we had a better chance than they, who were flying at 10,000 feet in the bad weather. But, you know, I had a young family. You know, was I being selfish, or by having a sort of a zest for life where you just don't say no to things? You know, is life the richer for it? And interestingly, now my kids are at the same sort of age that I was. They are doing things which, you know, terrify myself and my wife. They're getting their own back big time.
Would you describe yourself more, and I think you would, as an explorer than you would a businessman? Is that how you see your life?
I would like to see it that way. I mean, I think that the business ventures that I've taken were exploratory in themselves. You know, for instance, you know, we decided to take on the American airline business with Virgin America. You know, most people thought we were mad, but, you know, Virgin America became a very, very successful airline here. Where we see gaps in the market, particularly when industry is not running things well, Virgin likes to go in and shake it up.
Sir Richard Branson seems to build his success on promoting courageous innovation. So when we come back, Branson aims his visionary power at the planet's biggest challenge. Do you think we've hit that time now where people, first of all, believe in climate change, secondly, believe that fossil fuels are a contributing, if not the reason for it, and are willing to do something about it?
Yes, I mean, everybody globally has believed that for a long time. There are, bizarrely, some people in America who seem to have had their head in the sands, but I think even those people are beginning to become realists now, I think. You know, all the scientific evidence is very, very clear. We are creating this sort of blanket around the Earth. It's getting a bit thicker every year, and it's going to carry on heating up this Earth. And you know, we have the most beautiful planet in the universe, and we must not damage or destroy it. And won't it be wonderful when in 2050, when everything is powered by the sun and by wind and by clean energy, we'll be paying less for our fuels. We'll be living in a clean environment. Our children and grandchildren will be breathing clean air. I mean, it's a wonderful utopia, and we just got to make it happen.
When you talk about it, it feels to me like you actually see that happening.
It will and can happen as long as governments set the ground rules. So it is important, for instance, that the price of clean energy is less than the price of dirty energy, and therefore people will then move to clean energy.
In the time since you started these conversations, there's been a lot of technological advances. We can make energy better through wind and solar. We can store it better. Now it actually seems like some of these things are possible, really possible, that you can run entire islands, you can run entire cities and communities.
I think charity begins at home, and I live on an island. We have plenty of sun, we have plenty of wind, and every single Caribbean island should be able to power themselves using solar, using wind, at a more efficient, cheaper price than the expensive fuels that they import. You know, they start off in the Middle East, they then shipped all the way over to America, they're then refined, then they're put on another ship, then they're taken to somewhere close to these islands, then they're put on another ship and they're taken down and by the time it gets there, it's incredibly expensive, whereas sunlight just comes straight to where you want it.
What do you think was the biggest innovation that gets us to where, from the idea that the sun could do it or the wind could do it, to the fact that really now we can?
I think the Chinese managing to bring the price of solar down and down and down and down, that's been the breakthrough.
There's no doubt that you are a man who has tried to push green energy, tried to move it into the mainstream, and you've done it aggressively. And if there's been criticism of you, it's been the promises that you haven't been able to keep. Like there's a $3 billion mark. This would have been the year. And the last time we sat down and talked about a year and a half ago, there wasn't the ability to spend some of the money that you had intended to on fuel.
What I said at the meeting was that for the next, I can't remember what it was, 6 or 7 years, we would put 100% of any profits we made out of the airline business invested into clean fuel. And that's what we did. But as I said the last time we did the interview, the profits were not that great. So it was hundreds of millions of dollars. At the time, I was hoping it would be a bigger sum. But we just got a big windfall check from Alaska for Virgin America. We have a lot more money to spend. We will be using Virgin Galactic to try to experiment on engines, to see what engines are capable of. Can they go to 100% clean fuels? Can they only go to 50% clean fuels? And we're talking to Boeing and we're talking to Rolls-Royce about working with them on that. If we can show that a plane can do 100% clean energy and the kind of clean energy that doesn't eat into the food supply, so something like an algae-based clean energy or maybe isobutanol, we can then say to the rest of the airline industry, we've got this breakthrough and maybe we could all move that way. We saw what we believed to be a major problem for the world and felt that we had to do something to address that problem.
It had to be a little bit of a fantasy for you because you were very early on thinking this could be done when technology maybe didn't support it. So what does it feel like now to see the world almost the way you imagined it? Technology is making these things possible.
Although there are these breakthroughs in technologies, we still need to get governments to set the ground rules to be absolutely sure that we will get to carbon neutral by 2050, which is what the Paris talk said we'd have to get to.
How do you feel coming out of COP21?
So I think that 170 nations signed onto it, which was great. But now we've got to work on those nations and persuade them to put it into law in their own countries. Once it's there as a law of the land, then the government have to do everything that is necessary to help business make sure that it becomes a reality.
Airline industry, you're in it, shipping industry, trucking industry, these things were kind of left out by COP21 as not regulated. Why, and does somebody have to get in there and do that?
I don't think COP21 was pointing at specific industries. So the COP21 was just setting a global ground rules. I think it's up to those of us who are in these industries to battle to address them. So in the airline industry, we've been working hard trying to see whether, for instance, a 747 can run on 100% clean fuel.
You've tried different oils. You have.
Yeah, we've tried. And our spaceship company, interestingly, they have a 747, which we're going to use to send satellites into space, rockets that, going to be attached to one of its wings. And we've said to the team, we want you to make that 747, the first 747, to be powered by 100% clean energy. And we don't mind if it costs a bit more. We use this plane as an experimental plane to do that. The other exciting thing with the space program is we're planning to put this massive array of satellites around the Earth.
For Wi-Fi?
Yeah, 800, which would be many, many more than anyone's ever done before. And, there's 4 billion people who don't have internet access or Wi-Fi access at the moment. And this array will go some way towards addressing that and connecting those people.
I don't think people are aware of the 4 billion number, that people wouldn't have Wi-Fi in these nations. How big of a difference do you think that's going to make in a culture, in connecting them?
Massive difference. I think if you don't have internet access or able to use a mobile phone, the chance of you competing with somebody who does have that is almost impossible to compete with somebody who does have it.
Why go to these areas where you're just not going to be able to get that much money?
It's a for-business venture. It's something like a $2.5 billion cost to get it off the ground. But we believe that even by charging people really quite small amounts of money, if you add it all up together, we can make a business of it. And with that kind of investment, you have to make a business of it.
Where are you right now in the race to space for passengers and tourism? What's your target now? Are you ready to give me an idea on a date? What do you think?
I've made that mistake before, and I've been told when it's safe, when it's ready, we'll be flying, but we're not going to give dates.
But you're thinking less than 5 years.
Oh, I would be mortified if it was anything like that far away. So, yeah, you're too good a journalist. Anyway, I won't carry on with it.
You're not going to do the steps in increments under 5 years? All right, I got it.
But it's, we're not far away.
Now, Branson and his carbon war room are actually joining forces with energy think tank Rocky Mountain Institute to make climate change solutions a bit more profitable for businesses. And up next, one of their partnerships, First Designs, an office building so efficient it actually produces more energy than it uses.
It uses about a quarter of the total energy that's normal for an office in our coldest climate zone.
And later.
In South Africa alone, the poaching of rhinos has increased by 9,000% in the last decade and a half. They have been hunted virtually to the brink of extinction for their horn.